Welcome, 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 and happy New Year. Everything new in 2022. Welcome to the first edition of Michelle Speaks with a Z. If you hide it, you can't heal it, of this new year. And we are starting this year out with a bang. So, those of you that don't know me, I'm Michelle Portier, aka Michelle Speaks with a Z. If you hide it, you can't heal it. And I love to highlight individuals that have gone through tragedies, turned those tragedies into triumphs, have harnessed the lessons in them, and they are now giving back in their surrounding communities, either through activism, volunteerism, nonprofits. However, they are giving back because of the things that they've overcome. And so, there are many people that are hurting from the corporate arena to the church house, suffering in silence, wearing a mask to hide the struggles because of fear of judgment, consumed with condemnation, guilt, and shame. But Michelle Speaks with a Z provides a platform to discuss the taboo topics and provide valuable solutions, but also, most importantly, to provide hope. And that's what we're going to be doing today with my very special guest. I had the opportunity to connect with Ruth Falk last year initially, but however, we reconnected and I had the opportunity to be on her program, her summit, talking about how pornography changed monogamy. And we're continuing the conversation because trauma is all connected, right? And unhealed trauma can lead to so many things. And so today I have the honor of sharing the platform and hearing Ruth's journey as she traversed through unhealed trauma and how that has impacted her life and how she's worked through that and is now giving back to others. So without further ado, I want to share with you Miss Ruth Falk. Thank you so much for tuning in, Ruth.
Thank you so much for having me and allowing me to share my healing journey and be the voice that people need, because a lot of these things are so critical in our lives, but
Right,
hidden in our lives and no one talks about it. Like you
right,
said, you hide it, you can heal it.
exactly.
And yeah, for somebody that have lived that for so long, I don't want to do that anymore. And nothing that I experienced is a taboo or inhumane or shameful, because I feel that there is a time to share and
Right.
there's a time to experience. But I think one of the things that I'm going to share today is that I processed it and I've experienced it. I've experienced victory over it. And so I wanted to share with you guys my journey and how something that I lost does not mean that it's a permanent defeat, because there
Exactly.
are lessons and you get victory from
Exactly.
it. Yes.
Exactly. Which is why I'm so super excited that we were able to connect because we have not the same journey, but similar journeys and similar paths. And so, it's so wonderful to know that you're not alone in the fight, even though we know that we're really not. Sometimes it can feel that way. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I just wanted to go ahead and get right into it. For my listening audience that does not know you, what an amazing woman you are, tell them, who is Ruth Falk, personally, professionally, and spiritually?
Yes, I love that you presented the three levels, because that's how healing is. You
Yes,
heal
it is.
the surface level, which hurts, and it goes deeper and deeper. And so I'll start by saying that I am a CEO of two companies, and it's called Pleasure After Healing Life and Business Company. So I help people heal their life and also
Mhm.
their business. I think most people don't understand that there is end to a healing sometimes. It's like a cycle, and then you heal so that you do your next thing, whether it be business, whether it be, working on relationships or something else that, you can do. So I help people go through that. And my thing happened to be business and virtual assistant work. So that's kind of what I do. But I hand them off to a next person that can help them with their next chapter of their life. And yeah, I believe that healing is everything. I believe Jesus came to heal the land, heal our hearts. And I believe that healing changes everything in your life,
Right.
including personal life, spiritual life, um, and your sexual life, money. So, yeah, that's me. And professionally speaking, I studied psychology, theology, and business. So, those three
That's a
things,
great combination.
yeah, work together to help people be successful practically, but also same time, remove some of the spiritual abuse and yeah, and emotional abuse. And lastly, my personal journey has been that I was married to sex addict who was a narcissist, and I was also brought up in a narcissistic home. I'm not trying to make myself look better than them or anything. We're all broken people. But all I'm saying and giving you a context that my personal journey has led me to help people with sexual trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And um, there's a fun thing that I'm going to say to you. Um, when you're in trauma, your response is fight, flight, freeze. And then I add one more thing, fuck. That would be like sorry about the F word, but
Right.
people that are sexually
Well,
traumatized, I don't
yeah,
want to call
no
us.
need to apologize. I mean, we do talk about taboo topics, and that is a great,
Yes,
everyone has a sex life, whether they talk about it, whether they don't, whether it's just with themselves or with one other person or multiple people.
yeah.
Everyone has a sex life, and that's part of the reason that I love talking about topics like this, because I think there has been so much damage, especially within Christendom or the kingdom, however you want to classify it, because it's become such a not just a taboo thing, but they've made it out to be such a an evil thing. And sex is not. It's a part of life. It's a part of
Mhm.
connection. It's a part of being, connected with another being. So yeah,
Mhm.
no need
I'm
to
using
apologize. Yeah.
using the F word as a traumatic sex,
Hmm.
not a sex that God has designed. And
Right.
so that is what we run to. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, and so I am all about helping people heal from sexual trauma. That's the one that people run to and use it to numb it rather
Hmm.
than to honor one another and to love one another. To me,
Right.
that's wonderful. And then emotional trauma and religious trauma, infidelity, all of these things, betrayal, really reveals things that we get to heal.
Hmm.
And I wanted to share with you as a coach. I'm not perfect. Coaches need coaches. Hairdressers need hairdressers.
Exactly.
We're just
Exactly.
like a step ahead of certain areas that we can help. But there are areas that I am weak in. And sometimes that's the area where trauma gets to point to us some things that we get to work on. And it's really important for us to embrace when trauma teaches us or emotion teaches us about how we're reacting, what's happening to our body and
Hmm.
mind. And I think that if I see this money scam as a total failure, that no, I don't see that. I think this, yes, there was a lesson in that. There was something that I lost, but
So before you get in too far into the money scam, because I know that topic was kind of intriguing to a lot, I'm sure. So
mhm,
how unhealed trauma leaves you prey to money scams? If,
mhm.
if someone were tuning in and they were like, well, what do you mean by that? How does unhealed trauma impact and what kind of money scams?
This was something called pig butchering, money scam. coming
Mm-hmm.
from Hong Kong. And um, unhealed trauma runs your life. It affects critical moments of your life when you're making this critical decisions about money, relationships, career choices. And um, unfortunately, it's unconscious. So you don't know it's happened until after you've created something that you didn't want.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how trauma is. It is something that is like hit you when you are least expected. And so unhealed trauma for me, I think everyone has in, inculcated in an environment where they have developed an identity about who they are, and I
Mm-hmm.
call it traumatic identity. So it's not who you really are the way God intended for you to be, but in your childhood some happenings, some experiences made you believe that this is who you are. To me, that's traumatic identity. And if you carry that to adulthood without examining it, it will run where you put your money to, who you choose to spend time with, and what career you go to. So your value and your priority is organized based on that traumatic identity. And
So,
the worst, yeah, go ahead.
what are some examples of
Yeah.
you were able to identify your unhealed trauma and
Mhm.
how that caused you to be scammed? Because I know, I'm sure some of our listening audience, those that are listening in, are thinking when they think about money scams, because you know how, especially during the pandemic, women have been, not just women, men too, lonely. And so they're looking for other ways to connect. And maybe they connected with someone online and thought they had fallen in love. And then all of a sudden, after they're like 2 or 3 months in, they start asking for money. They're sending money. So when you say money scams, that's what I thought of. But what are some other ways, that you can be scammed because of unhealed trauma or low
Yeah,
self-esteem? I know it's all connected.
absolutely. Love and money scam was exactly what I went through. It's about my unhealed trauma, choosing somebody
Mm-hmm.
and seeing the red flags and still going ahead because of my trauma. So this man found me on Facebook and, knew exactly what to say. He really complimented on my work, and wanted to become part of my life, texted me every day, and that, felt good. Like he showed up like nobody else in my life that have showed up. And so, like these people know exactly what they need to do to get in a relationship with you. And then he began to share his dreams and goals about trading, crypto, money, how we can buy something together. So they approach you like they're really looking for love.
Mm-hmm.
And and for me, like I knew off the bat if this could be a scam. Like I was like, well, I don't want you to, do this unless you share with me who you are, like video chat or call.
So
And here's
basically, he listened to what you said you needed, and then he filled that need,
hmm I
or
mean,
what he heard that you wanted, and he filled that
yeah.
need. Okay.
I mean, like I would say that part of me is mostly done. I think the one part that I didn't realize that I was unhealed was the anger part. When
Mm.
he became angry, when I began question his identity, which was red flag. I already knew. I was very smart. I mean, I knew some of these were red flags. Like he was not local. He was, you know,
What
the
What were
anger.
some of the red flags outside of not being local, and with those red flags, what caused you to continue anyway, even though you saw the red flags?
Yeah. Some of the red flags was that he didn't um, honored my situation with money. He was very powerful and overbearing about money. When it came to money, everything else he was very respectful. And so the fact that he didn't want to show himself, he was very shy to talk to me in English. And so these things were red flags. But what overpowered, see, my brain is smart. I recognize it. Red flags, I even almost threatened to block him, but trauma overtook me. I'll explain why. The minute I questioned him and my ability to trust him, I had to make it about me for him. So, for example, I have trust issue. It's not that anything's wrong with you. Like, it's not that you're not real or that you can't talk to me. It's that I have trust issue. It's my fault. I see that's a traumatic identity taking over. And then when he became really angry, like, you don't trust me, then I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to do any of this investment. So when he got angry, to me, that anger, what happened was, as a child growing up, my mom and dad were very angry people. And when they got angry, I had to, no matter what, submit to them, do what they say against my own wishes and will. And so that completely triggered me. So when he got angry, even though I knew all these red flags,
You just wanted to submit.
Submit.
Right.
And so I have found a way to please him with just $1,000. I'll send you 1,000 if you send your 1,000. So I created like a win-win solution. And that's what I do when somebody's angry with me. Even though I don't believe in it, even though it's not helpful or dangerous, I just create a win-win situation so that I can safely escape this situation. Instead of just saying no and walk away and never see you again.
So you compromise. So you compromised so that you could feel safe enough to be able to put yourself in a position where you felt safe to get away.
Yeah. So that's my traumatic identity as a childhood, kicking it in the moment that's so critical as an adult, right? And that's when once I put in the money, like everything just goes. Like he's happy. Now he has me. Now he is controlling me. And I remember thinking, this is so much like my ex-husband. Like I know exactly how to play this game. I knew it.
So how long did you end up being involved in were you able to recoup anything that you put in?
I actually end up continuing to enjoying the ride.
Okay.
And the feeling of romance, feeling that I will be making all kinds of money. And he did prove himself to give me a little bit back. And so I ended up getting 1,600 back, but ended up putting a lot more in to invest, and then ended up losing it. So it was like all fabrication. His profile was fake. He's actually a Chinese person. So yeah, I think that another trauma, this was an anger trauma that I got to work through because of this. I knew it, but does not mean that I could prevent myself reacting. My nervous system, it's like an automatic reaction. Like brain is activated at that time. So the anger made me do the things that I used to do as a child. And so that was more like a trigger that I didn't take time to, align myself. And
well, when you went back to the familiar things that you used to do as a child, can you share like a little bit of what you mean by that? So maybe someone listening in can relate.
Yeah, what was familiar was that when there was anger from a man or somebody that you're closest to, by then this man has established loving connection with me, like somebody that I could see myself, being with. And by then he told me he loved me way too soon. That's also a red flag that I remember. I remember not talking to him for 2 days because it triggered me too soon. To not
How long
honoring.
have you guys been speaking before he said that? He stated
Oh,
that he
one
loved
month. 1 month. Yeah. And so, um, even less than that, actually, 3 weeks maybe. And so yeah, what's familiar to me is that growing up, people that loved me were angry at me. So when somebody's angry at me, then that's familiar. Oh, they're angry because they love me. And therefore, I need to please them. And anger was what's directing our relationship. Anger was what's causing me to make a critical decision. Oh,
it?
yeah, you're angry. That means you must be right. You must be powerful over me. That's how it was as a child. My parents were angry. They're the ones that directed me. And somehow, that became familiar scene as an adult. When somebody stranger, a scammer, gets angry at you, you feel like you want to submit to them, like they're your parents that loves you and wants to take care of you.
Hmm.
And so because you need a different skill set as an adult,
And so
because mhm.
how are you able to, now that you've experienced that? I don't know if that's the only experience that you had due to unhealed trauma, as far as money skin, but how are you able to now? Because, you know, what you do now is help others, work through
Mhm.
emotional trauma
Yeah,
and sexual trauma.
yeah. There's another major trauma that I didn't know that was working during this
Mhm.
time. So that was just an anger thing that I mentioned. It's just a small piece, but there's a major trauma that got worked through. So what happened was I didn't talk to anybody during this scam about
Okay,
this guy. So it was just between me and this guy. And
right.
that's another traumatic identity. I'll tell you, this was big. And so normally I am a very connected person. I talk to my friends and family about, new guys that I'm seeing or new friends, new projects, my work. I'm very
Mhm.
open and transparent person. But somehow something about this transaction, I kept it to myself until it was too late. I
So you
connected
were
my Yeah, connected my friend and my coaches after. I remember talking to my coach saying, "Oh, I think this guy's a scam. I won't even do it." And then I did it. And then after the was completely gone, I told, "Yeah, I've given them $30,000." I'm like, "What? Why didn't you tell me about it?" Like, I don't know. I didn't connect with you during the next few weeks or whatever. And
so
so
you
I
were
kept.
scammed out of a total of $30,000.
Mhm.
Wow.
That's a
Wow.
lot of money for me. And
Right. That's a lot of money for anybody.
it's a lot of money for anybody.
Right.
And not only that, yes, I got my friends involved as well to this game because I truly, once I'm in all the way. It doesn't matter. Like, once I'm all the way in.
On
So
your on your part, because initially you told one of your coaches, "Oh, I think this guy's a scam," and then you got involved with him. Was there any hesitancy when you finally did share, or was there any embarrassment, guilt, anything like that once you finally decided to disclose? And is that what kept you from sharing before the time that you did?
exactly,
Mhm.
shame,
Mhm.
um, the feeling of could be making a mistake and I want to be perfect. And I didn't want
Mhm.
my friends and parents to know about this until I have great success.
Mhm.
So here is the trauma that was keeping me bound and secretive in the
Mhm.
first weeks. My coach knew about it, but when I changed my mind and start putting in $1,000, start putting more money and money, it didn't. dawned on me like I wasn't talking to anybody during the time I was putting money in. It was just between him and I, this
Mm-hmm.
scammer. And then once I put all the money in, I began to share my friends, and he's the one that told me you've been scammed and that you're not going to put any money in anymore. It's like, and that's when I realized, okay. Um, but I would say there's that child. So my coach asked me, why didn't you talk to me? Why did you do this? More importantly, why didn't you talk to anybody? And
Right.
then this memory come up for me. It's the most traumatic memory of abandonment in my life. And I was raised by my grandmother for the first 4 years of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I came home to live with my mom. And so that was a traumatic experience for me, because coming from somebody that took care of you, that's like your mom, and then it's like being adopted to a new environment and a new parent. And I remember wanting to leave my mom to go back to my grandmother. And what happened was, as like a 4-year-old girl, I cried, and I remember my mom disciplined me and she was angry with me, and I felt so unsafe and upset. Yet I couldn't find my grandmother because it was a big city. I just walked out of the apartment my parents were living in, and I walked just to the main street where there's full of dangers. It was later at night. There was motorcycles, cars everywhere. I walked straight into an open street market. Just kept walking. It's dark. Kept walking and crying. And I said, I'm gonna go see my grandmother. I'm gonna go to grandmother. And so, unbeknownst to me, my mom was following me the whole time behind. And she eventually saw me crying and picked me up and took me home.
Mm-hmm.
But she just let me go for hours and hours on my own. And I think that trauma came up for me, and it was a sense of abandonment, when there was a help behind you following you, but you don't ask, you don't feel safe to turn around and go with mom. When mom is somebody safe that you don't feel safe, yet you just go into greater danger, hoping that there is a solution for your problem.
So, what
Uh,
was the thing that caused you to feel safe enough, I guess, to share with your coach when you finally did? And it was that part of what led you on the path that you're on now to helping others.
mhm. Well, I guess the major thing was my friend who, it was God's grace that I met this friend who also had an experience in helping somebody else getting the exact same scam.
Oh,
So
wow.
he's well aware of that, and he didn't shame me. I actually talked to him like, I met this great guy. I want, he's my dating kind of coach kind of guy.
Right.
So talking to him about, guys, there's some red flag here, Ruth. And yeah, and did he ask for money? It's like, yeah, I put money in. And that's when he kind of went through it. That was 2 days of conversation with him. That's a few
Mm-hmm.
hours long. And let me tell you, it was harder for me to trust that I got scammed than actually being scammed.
Really?
So yeah, because I was so into it. So he totally removed the shame for me. And
Mm-hmm.
then I connected to my coach, and I wasn't ready to talk to my coach because of this trauma and coming up for me. And I cried a lot with this friend. But as a coach, I know how to release some of these emotions and traumas that comes up. So, when he treated me with respect and no shame, and really helped me understand that this is not my fault. I want everybody listening in to say, and to know that your trauma is not your fault.
Mm-hmm.
Trauma is not your fault. However, it is your responsibility to heal. That falls on you, because it falls on me to work through my anger trauma and then my abandonment trauma, and that was in the middle of my scam. They were the reason I ignored all the red flags and went into danger, knowing that there will be answer to my problems in the marketplace when there's more dangers and darkness and all.
Well, with
Walking
healing, with
sorry.
healing, you know you have to be ready to take that journey because it's going to be a rough one. So,
Mm-hmm.
you may not know that you're in a place that you need healing. And I don't know about you, but I know that was the case for me. For many years, I was blindly wearing a mask, not knowing that I was damaged to the point that I was, until
Mm-hmm.
it got to the point that, I couldn't wear that mask anymore. And so,
Absolutely.
for those listening in, what would be some of the things that indicate that you might be wearing a mask and that there is some healing that is needed from trauma so that you
Mhm.
don't encounter. And I know you talked about having coaches before. I really agree with that. I have coaches for various areas in my life, and they hold me accountable. I wish I had known that years before, but when you know better, you do better. So,
Mhm.
what were some of the?
One thing that came up for me before this interview was exactly that, is that people, including myself, don't heal because we don't know that we are broken. I mean, in certain areas, we are whole in a sense that God redeemed us from our past. But at the same time, sometimes scam, divorce, trauma like sexual trauma, some of these things just push us over the edge to really look at ourselves like, what do we do, you
Mhm.
know and then you begin to think seriously about your healing. And unfortunately, that's our human carnal nature, that we don't do it until we have exhausted all options.
Mhm.
So if you are listening today and thinking trauma doesn't affect me, trauma doesn't affect my children, my spouse, my money, my job, think again, because it does not. I was just talking to somebody with PhD earlier. She got scammed. She also has an incredible amount of knowledge and intelligence. Like, it's nothing to do with how educated you are. Trauma
Exactly.
doesn't discriminate.
It does not at all.
And it's part
No
of
matter
the
your ethnicity, no matter your economic status, no matter, whether you're wealthy, middle class, poor, um, it does not discriminate. I'll say that.
trauma works like a blind spot.
Hmm.
You almost need somebody to show you how this works. And I talked to some a pure director of puredesires.org. It's a big organization that helps people heal from sexual trauma. And he even said that I knew all of this. I knew about this anger thing. I knew about the abandonment trauma, but I didn't know how it was working in my
In
scam,
your life, right?
my life current. And so when you see that impact and you realize if this is life or death, it affects my critical decisions of my life, and I don't want that to happen. And then you realize how urgent it is.
So, what are some of the steps that you've taken now that it was been identified that those are some of
Mhm.
the challenges that you're encountering now? The
Yeah.
abandonment, the anger. What are some of
Hmm.
the steps that you're taking now as you continue to help others to heal yourself?
So I shared this experience with my mother, and she was part of that trauma. And she came and hugged me. We cried together for a long time. So there was a lot of tears, and is like, and speaking about it, moving the shame. It's important to the right person, the right people, if you can. If the person in your trauma is still alive and is aware. My mom happened to be somebody that could talk about this trauma. And so that was good. And we released that. And I no longer feel like I need to hide things from her. Um, I feel like I no longer feel like I need to do life alone and make decisions alone. And, that feeling of ignoring red flags in the presence of anger, I talked to my dad about it. But there was no
Supported. You feel supported now, is what you're saying?
go get support.
Mm-hmm.
Also, what I did was I was on my knees talking to God about abandonment.
Mm-hmm.
And what it showed what I did was I meditated on it. And what it does is that it helps you access that part of you in your body that is affected by this trauma. And so there was a lot of gag coming. Like there was no food inside of me, but I had to kind of puke it out, which trauma actually, when it comes out of you, it has physiological
Mm-hmm.
manifestation of leaving. Sometimes you can scream it out, sometimes you can cry it out, sometimes you can puke it out. So those things happen. And, I kept telling myself I show myself love physically, emotionally, and saying, I will never abandon you. I will
Mm-hmm.
take care of you. I looked it in the mirror and say, no one is as, you know, precious as you to God and to me. I will take care. I love you. I will never abandon you. I kept repeating that. I love you. And so just being gentle with yourself after trauma's being released, and you realize you'll never feel abandoned enough to want to hide these things, hide important decisions, and go into danger to look for solutions that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
When you have people behind you have support around you. Don't abandon yourself. I realized that I abandoned myself in that moment. Knowing it all here, but really working through that in your body and your mind and your spirit.
So you said something earlier that I thought was kind of profound. Um, you said you responded to anger by submitting, and basically that's like people pleasing. So have you found that since you started working through that trauma that you're less prone to trying to please others at to your own detriment?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, there was some issues with, home and when there's violence and anger, I no longer submit and
Mm-hmm.
change my mind about things or my red flags. I just simply say, walk away and set boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm able to not abandon myself, my feelings, my intuitions, which is from the Holy Spirit. And so setting boundaries, walking away instead of pleasing the person that's angry is to me a huge success and victory that I've experienced. And
What are some of the other boundaries that you've set?
yeah, another boundaries I set is when I talk to a man, he has to show up in person, skin and flesh and bone. And so I practiced that right after the scam. I actually went on a date and I saw the man in flesh. And I realized I kept telling myself, this is not my fault. This is not your intent. Trauma's not my fault. But scam artists are amazingly good at it. There's no winning. You're gonna lose it, but you can have victory over them
Mm-hmm.
by know pivoting yourself and realize, okay, I could do it differently, and then I proved myself that I could do it differently, and so that was an empowering experience for me.
And so, what was the outcome as far as that particular circumstance? Did you confront him and try to attempt to get it back, or did you report
Yeah.
him?
I went to police station twice and I reported it to the economic fraud part of bank and
The
police.
banking industry.
Mhm. And I'm going to contact FBI police. This is Canadian police that I contacted, but I'm going to contact FBI. Um, Also, that's one of the reasons I'm on podcast here is that they're due to COVID, a lot of people are connecting online.
Yes.
You want to make sure that you do a video chat or call on the phone before you get involved in a relationship. And if even if you do, you want to meet the person before you spend any money. And by the way, find someone that you trust
To be accountable to.
to be accountable with you. And anything that you do with money or man, make sure that you tell your best friends, if you don't have a coach, or talk to your coach, your therapist, whoever that loves you, that you feel safe with. And you know what? The solution you're looking for, that money that you're looking for, it's not in some dangerous place. It's within you. You could create it yourself. It's you have everything you need with God.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't need to look for a dangerous place to get to where you want to go and unknown places. So that's my advice to people listening. And guess what? Even if these things already happened to you, it's not your fault. And it's not too late to recover from that. There is an amazing lesson, and the value that I got to, release these two traumas are priceless. I feel that these two things about myself that I didn't know, I got to release it because of the terrible thing that happened to me. And I learned to love myself more. And I learned to
And how do you do that? What does that look like for you? You loving yourself more.
loving myself more means that I give myself that grace and forgiveness first
Mm-hmm.
before expecting others to do it for you. For example, I expected my parents to forgive me, because I couldn't forgive myself. And
Mm.
so giving yourself that time and tangible actions towards yourself to forgive, to show that you forgive yourself. And God could help you with that. And I went on a date with somebody that is completely real, and that was a good treat. He took me out, told him about scam.
Okay.
He didn't judge me, and I realized I created more connections because of the scam. I had told my girlfriend, she was so upset about it, yet she wanted me to go on another podcast. It's all about scam podcasts. And so people are
Mm-hmm.
supportive. And instead of hiding is not loving. Hiding is self-hatred and doubting,
Mm-hmm.
self-doubt. Um,
So you're no longer hiding.
and I
So you,
decided to connect to you. And I think that more and more you can accept your process of healing,
mm-hmm.
more and more that you understand that this is why I heal, and this is why how people heal. There's no perfection. Healing is messy. And I'm glad that it happened now than later. And, I think that's loving is that having those thoughts of power that gives you power to overcome this kind of um, event.
So what are some insights that you can share with women who have experienced similar circumstances or are experiencing it?
Hmm. Well, my coach told me that my upbringing, all these things culminated into, um, being scammed because my ex-husband was almost like a scam too. And like he was someone that kind of scammed me in a way. So that's what my coach said to me. It is important to address the truth that hurts and realize, okay, this is something that I need to work on. But that doesn't mean that you are less than. That doesn't mean that you are unlovable. That doesn't mean that it is your fault and you're a failure. So I would say the biggest thing is that everything that happened to you is happened for you because of love.
Mm-hmm.
It's an opportunity to love yourself radically and accept yourself radically and be compassionate towards you radically because healing starts with you. That's why it's so hard. And I think most people will see the loss and trample themselves over it and they don't know how to get out of it. But this is an opportunity to radically heal, radically receive victory over to go up higher. Because if you're not down there, you don't know how to go up. All
Right.
right? To go up.
So, what, share one of your, I know you've had many, many defining moments. Share one of your most defining moments as you realized that this was the journey that you were going to embark upon as far as taking on the task of helping people heal from trauma because it's not easy. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
then what is a takeaway that you can leave with our listening audience and a call to action?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you feel the loneliest, when you are doing something alone, I would say, watch out. Because we're not meant to do life alone. And I think the worst part of my life and traumatic moments of my life that I can count in my life, betrayal, sexual trauma, I was alone. I didn't realize this, but I abandoned myself to myself. I abandoned myself to connect with other people outside of that relationship. And so for me, coach is a relationship that you could have. And it's beyond friendship because friends can actually try to please you and agree with you and not able to show you things that you need to see to heal. And so for me, going forward, coaches are not perfect. We are human beings, and healing life isn't supposed to be perfect to have a wonderful result. And so that perfectionistic mindset is it's going to only harm relationship. So, I feel like being perfect isn't godly either. God doesn't expect perfection from us, but he wants connection. He wants a relationship. So no matter what you're going through, whether you're scammed, whether you are traumatized, sexually abused, whatever you're going through, do not leave yourself alone. Do not abandon yourself to be alone. And I think that's the biggest takeaway for me.
Mm-hmm.
And when
So,
you notice your
what is the call to action for someone that may have identified a trauma, an
mm-hmm,
unhealed trauma, whether it be anger or abandonment or guilt or
mm-hmm,
self love or lack of self love or whatever it is? What is the
mm-hmm.
call to action if they're tuning in right now? What would you say to them?
I would say reach out to somebody one person right now. Reach out to somebody, one person that comes to your mind. And you can certainly reach out to me or Michelle. And definitely, definitely write about it if you can reach out. And
Mhm.
you are smarter than you think. You know more than you think you know. And
Mhm.
so definitely reach out to somebody immediately, one person today, and share with them what you're doing alone.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So, you've said so much today. I think one of the major things that I took away is the traumatic identity, and you were vulnerable because you allowed yourself to be disconnected and isolated without even realizing it due to
Mm-hmm.
unhealed trauma. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that was very profound, something that you just said, that, many people think healing is you're going to wrap it all up nice in this little bow and it's a linear, journey, but it's not. Healing is messy. And so I loved how you stated that. And the goal is not perfection, but connection, which is how God created us. One thing I always say is we were created to commune. We were created to commune one another because He created us. It's in our DNA. He created us for connection. So if you find yourself isolating for any reason, and you know that you're dealing with unhealed trauma, reach out and connect with Miss Ruth, and she's going to share with you how you can connect with her before we leave. And I want to say I'm just so honored, and I'm glad that you were able to come on and share your experience with us, especially regarding unhealed trauma and how that opens you up to money, being scammed monetarily, especially during the pandemic. It leaves you vulnerable to wanting to stay connected by any means necessary. And so some of the things that you said were very key. If you are going to connect with someone online, do a FaceTime, with this modern technology. And if they refuse to do so, that is a big, big, big red flag. And do not give anyone money that you don't know, even if you're getting to know them. Um, and so I
Yeah.
want to turn it over to Miss Ruth so that she can give you her contact information, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Michelle. It's such an honor to speak to your audience today. And my $30,000 loss is your $30,000 gain if I can prevent one person from getting scammed because of their
Right.
unhealed trauma. And you could connect to me and tell me about your experience of scam. It could look differently, but if you need to, I could be reached at ruthfalk.com, and you can book a 30-minute session there. It's free. You can tell me anything you want to tell me. Um, my 30-minute is free for you. And you can also just email me at connect starts with connect at ruthfalk.com. So those two things, connect at ruthfalk.com, and my website, you can book a session, ruthfalk.com.
Well, there you have it, guys. It was such an honor to speak with Ruth today as she shared her experience about how unhealed trauma can leave you prey to being scammed monetarily. And so I
Mhm.
want to thank you for sharing a portion of your journey. Again, if you resonated with Ruth and you wanted to connect with her, she provided her information, or you can reach out to her at ruthfalk.com. So it's ruthfalk.com.
ruthfalk.com. And
Okay.
there you can email me, and then I'll send you my phone number as well if you want to call me. I am available, and I will share my calendar with them. So I'm excited to share with you what your healing journey is like and how I can support you.
Right. I'm excited as well. And so thank you all again for tuning in to the first podcast of the year of 2022, everything new in 2022, with Michelle Speaks with a Z. If you hide it, you can't heal it. And as we continue on this road called life, know that healing is indeed a journey. It is not a destination that you arrive at. There's layers. And as you continue to live, you will continue to reveal and discover things that you need healing from. And so continue to enjoy life, continue to rediscover and discover things about you that you had not, and continue to heal. And so, until our next time, you guys take care, be well, and God bless. And thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you. God bless you guys.